Onyx, level 3 upgrade. So today I'm going to be installing the RC Screwz stainless steel screw kit. This is a must-have for pretty much any RC out there. And I am missing some screws off this RC, so this is a very good upgrade to go ahead and do now. So let's go ahead and get this long process over with. Go ahead and pop off the body, and yeah, this is gonna be fun. Go ahead and take this off. Now, before I get started, there's a few things I should go ahead and mention. First of all, like I said before, I am missing some screws. They were just not there when this RC was donated to me, so I had to move around what was there to make up for the ones that weren't there. So yeah, this is definitely going to be a good upgrade for this RC. But also another thing that I noticed was one of the front body posts was broken, and not just broken, but it's missing, and the actual mount for the post is broken. So I did have to get some replacements. So I'll be able to go ahead and replace the ones in the front, and if I want to, the ones in the back, which I might as well do because they are included in this. So let's start off by going ahead and taking each of the tires off. Each one is held in with a single screw. Pop those off, and in case the wheel nuts didn't come off, we can go ahead and pull those off as well. And need to do some cleaning while I'm at it. Okay, set that all off to the side. We're gonna go ahead and unplug the ESC from the motor. And then after that, we're gonna go ahead and undo the brace that holds it all on. It's held on with a screw up front and a screw in the back. Okay, we're gonna pull everything out. Okay, set that off to the side. Unplug the servo and ESC, set that off to the side. Set the ESC itself off to the side. And then we're gonna undo the shocks. Each shock is held in with a single screw on top and bottom. Shocks out of the way, it's time to go ahead and undo these links in the front and in the back. Just gonna go ahead and get a screwdriver and pop it off. Okay, now that those have been popped off, I'm going to undo the front and back top shock tower, which is held in with 2 screws each. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the top chassis plates. This one's usually held in with 6 screws, 2 in the front, 2 in the middle, 2 in the back, and then I'm going to take off the rear one, which is held in with 4. 2 up front, and of course 2 in the back. Okay, screws out of the way. I'm just going to go ahead and pull off the braces. Alright, set those off to the side. Now we're going to go ahead and take off the body post. Each body post is held in with a screw. Once you pull out those screws, if you really want to, you can go ahead and mark this with an X-Acto knife. That way you know the exact position when you put those back in. But yes, I'm going to put all the body posts to the side. Now it's time to remove the front and rear bumper. The back bumper is held in with 2 screws, while the front bumper is held in with 5 screws. We got 3 on top, and then these 2 on the sides. Alright, set that off to the side, pull off the bumper, and now the front bumper mount is held on with 2 screws. Once those are out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and get a firm grip, pull this down, and you can see that the bars for the front A-arms will come out, and you do not want to lose these spacers. So we're going to pull these off, set those off to the side, pull out the front mount, slide that off to the side. You can see now that this is all going to start falling off, which is good because I need to go ahead and clean all this anyways. You can see that the drive shafts will fall right out of the diff gear, and then it's all connected to the servo. Now the servo is held in with this brace, and this brace is held in with 2 screws. Alright, with those 2 out of the way, we can lift the servo up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it by the steering bell cranks. I'm going to slide it right on up, and we have pretty much the whole front assembly, at least the drive lines. We can also go ahead and get the drive shafts and pull these out because I need to go ahead and clean all this. And yes, I'm going to pull the bearings out as well and just re-oil them up after cleaning them out. And yeah, we'll go ahead and set all this off to the side. Now it's time to go ahead and move on to the gear cover. The gear cover, of course, is only held on with a single screw after taking off everything else. We're going to set that off to the side, and now we're going to go ahead and move on to the back. The back brace, of course, is held on with these two screws. Once those are out of the way, I'm going to pull it back. There we go. Pull out the brace, and yes, there's going to be spacers on these as well. You do not want to lose those. Those are important. I'm going to set this all off to the side, and these bars are dirty. Definitely going to have to clean those off. But yeah, with that, you can see that you can go ahead and pull off the rear drive lines. My gosh, those are dirty. Yeah, all that's going to have to be cleaned. There is so much gunk in these. Ugh. Yeah, and same with the front. I'm going to re-oil these bearings after cleaning them. Okay, next up, yeah, we can go ahead and pull out the motor, in fact. Just got to get this and slide it straight up. Ta-da! Set that off to the side. Now we're going to remove these two support posts. Each one is held in with a single screw. Now while you're undoing these screws, you are going to have to use the LaTrax wrench, if you have one, to hold this in place while you undo these screws. Alright, now that we got those off, you really don't need this, but it is good to have that extra support, because if you strip this plastic that's on the bottom that holds it in one position, it's just going to rotate with the screw, and you're going to have one heck of a time trying to undo it after that. And as you guys can see, we are running out of things to do here. So let's go ahead and take off the front diff housing, which is held in with 4 screws. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and pull off the front diff, set that off to the side. Now it's time to move on to the back. We're going to go ahead and pull off this brace that's located right behind the spur gear. Pull that straight up, set that off to the side. And now we need to go ahead and remove the last 8 screws. Okay, so we just gotta pop that up. Now we got the chassis, finally. Set that off to the side. We're gonna go ahead and pull this part. There we go, which is revealing a lot more cleaning. And now for the last 2 screws I need to worry about, well, are going to be the 2 on each of the front and rear diff housing. Alright, so inside you will see the diff gear itself, which is really simple. And then we have this gear that is a bit of a problem. This is a front diff gear, and you can see that this gear that hooks onto the center drive line, let's go ahead and pop that out. You'll see that there's a notch on it. This gear is supposed to sit on it just like that. That's what gives it drive to the diff gear, which gives it 4-wheel drive. With this setup, the front gear wasn't even hooked onto the center drive line, so I've just been driving around with rear drive. I mean, I didn't have 4-wheel drive this entire time. Kind of sucks. So yeah, I'm gonna have to remedy that when I put all this together. Now, oh yeah, might as well go ahead and do this. If you ever want to take the spur gear off, you're just going to pull off the bearing, then you can get a body clip, and you're going to slide out the pin that holds it on. Put that in a special place because you do not want to lose that. Then you just pull the spur gear off backwards. And yes, you are going to have a spacer there as well. But yeah, that's a lot of work just to replace a spur gear if you ask me. But yeah, all this stuff now needs to be cleaned. You can tell that this is just covered in, gosh, this is just terrible. Yeah, let's scrub this down with some dish soap and a toothbrush. And just in case you're wondering, once I pull off the rear housing, yeah, you can see that this gear was actually stuck onto the spur gear. So yeah, it's supposed to be lined up into the housing just like that. But yeah, that's a pretty crappy design if you ask me. I mean, come on. So in case you're curious about the other half of the diff, once you pull this out, this thing comes apart pretty easily, so you gotta be careful about this. You're gonna get the shorter end, pull that off, and you can see all the planetary gears are just kind of set in there. So you got to be careful. If you want to pull this apart and clean it, you'll see that there is a center bar that both of these rotate on, and then these plastic gears can fall out of the housing. Yeah, but there you go. These bearings, as far as I know, cannot be pulled off from these pieces, which is kind of stupid. Like I said, there's some strange design choices, but yeah, all this has to be clean. So, there are a couple more extra screws that are fairly well hidden. First of all, on the A-arms, you will see that the pin that holds the axle carrier to the A-arm, there is a single screw. Now when you undo that screw, that will give you the option to pull out the pin so you can go ahead and take this apart. But yeah, pretty well hidden. Now for the front assembly that I took off from the chassis that you saw earlier, these two screws that hold in the steering knuckles aren't very hidden, but yes, just like the back, you'll see that there is a screw that holds in the pin. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these three so I can take this apart and clean it up. Now, just like I showed you with the center drive line and the spur gear, in order to get the pin out, all you have to do is get a body clip, and then you're just going to push it from the opposite side of where you put out the screw. And there you have it. So now it's time to go ahead and open this thing up and see exactly what we get. Bam! Inside, of course, we have Allen wrenches because there is some hex screws in here. The majority of them, though, are Phillips heads, so yeah, not a big change there. We do have replacement screws for the wheels. We also have some for the motor, as well as those tiny screws on the A-arms, and then, yeah, all the other base ones. The only ones they don't include are the ones for the shoulders. Now, there's a few places where there are some shoulder screws. For example, there's some on the knuckle for the axle carriers, and somewhere else, oh yeah, of course, the shocks. Now, one thing I should go ahead and mention is there's a couple difference between the stainless steel screws and the stock ones. First of all, you can see that the threading is much finer and closer together than it is with the stock screws, so there is going to be a better grip. And with some of the screws, these are what they're infamous for, they are a little bit longer than the stock ones. But as far as I can tell, I haven't had any issues with these being too long. If they are too long with other RC screw kits, you can always use a bolt cutter. Now it's time to go ahead and start putting everything back together. But first, we're going to go ahead and start off by replacing these two screws for the battery tie down. Almost got by me. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the A-arms real quick and reinstall all the screws that hold in the pins for the A-arms. Next up, we're going to move on back to the chassis and we're going to install the bottom of the diff housing for the front and back. All you have to do is slide it into position and then install these 4 screws. Okay, with those 8 screws taken care of, we're going to flip the chassis back over and do the bottom part of the spur gear housing. Slide that in position and install these 4 screws. Now it's time to go ahead and take care of the center drive line. So as you can see, I reinstalled the spur, everything has been cleaned up. I'm going to get the bearing, slide that on, followed by the gear that goes on the tip. Then I'm going to do that for the other side. Once that's all situated, I'm going to go ahead and put this back into position. Make sure that the gears are pushed all the way in. Then I'm going to get the diff gears themselves. And as you can see, I went ahead and greased them back up. Push that in on each side. Then I'm going to get the top of the housings and then slide those into position. And then reinstall the 2 screws that go in on each side. And just in case you don't know which way the diff gear goes back in, you'll see that there's a little nub that's sticking up. You want to put the gear on the other side. Okay, now we're going to reinstall the motor. I'm just going to slide that in position. Oh, before I do, these 2 screws can normally get changed, but since this motor does not support the same screw size as the stock motor, I can't switch those out. But that's not too big of a deal. I really don't mind that. We're going to slide that back into position and, of course, put on the gear cover. And this is held down with a single screw. Now it's time to go ahead and move on to the back A-arms. We're going to start by reinstalling these bars. sliding them into position, followed by the A-arms themselves. And then we got the spacers, and finished off with the brace itself. Once that's all slid together, we're going to flip it upside down and reinstall these two screws. Okay, flip the RC over, and then we're going to install the drive shafts. We're going to push one end or the yokes into the spur, and then we're going to slide this through. There we have it. Same for the other side. Then we're going to get the brace for the back. You can see it slides right in there, just like that. Make sure everything is in position. Looks like it is. Now we're going to go ahead and get the back top chassis brace. We're going to slide that down and install these 4 screws. We can also go ahead and pop these back on. Alright, now we're going to move on to the body mount, which is held in with 2 screws. Then we're going to go ahead and install the top of the shock tower along with the shocks. Alright, pretty much done with the back, so now it's time to focus on the front. First thing we're going to do is reinstall the servo. Now the servo mount is held in with 2 screws. Once you get it into position, all you have to do is flip it over and install them. Alright, flip the RC back on over, and you're going to see that there are 2 holes. This is for the bottom of the steering servos. Slide those into position just like that. Then we're going to go ahead and get the drive shafts, and we're going to reinsert them into the differential gears. Once all that is lined up, then we're going to go ahead and get the pins for the A-arms. Slide that into position, then we're going to go ahead and put in the spacers. Finally, slide in the brace, and then insert these 2 screws. Now it's time to flip the RC back over yet again, and it's time to install these 2 support posts. You can see that there is a little square hole on each side. That's where the square fits. Once you insert it, then you have to go ahead and put in the screw on the bottom. Okay, now it's time to flip the RC over yet again, and instead of using this old broken body mount, which we're just going to throw away, we're going to use one of the brand new ones. Now remember, this one is held in with 5 screws. We have 3 on top, and then 2 on bottom on each side. Alright, and now back to the top. Everything looks good. It's time to go ahead and reinstall the top chassis center brace. So we're just going to line it up, push it all the way down, and then we got to reinsert all 6 screws. Okay, now we're going to pop back on the links. Then we're going to get the top of the shock tower, reinstall that, as well as the shocks. Now it's time to go ahead and move on to all the electronics. So here I have the receiver. Of course, the servo gets plugged in to channel 1. And the ESC gets plugged in to channel 2. And now I gotta stick this all back into the bracket. So, alright, there we go. And now the bracket is held in with 2 screws, 1 on bottom and 1 on top. Looking good. So now we're gonna go ahead and toss away these old body mounts, and we're gonna use these nice new ones. We're gonna slide it into the appropriate height and then insert the screw from the side. Alright, now it's on to the tires, the last thing. As you can see, I went ahead and painted the brake pads silver. I think it's gonna add a little bit of flair to it. So we're going to slide that on to position. We're going to get the tire, put that on, and surprisingly they do include the screws for the wheels. You just got to put on a washer and then put it in. So here is before, and here of course is after. And boy, that was a pain. You know, I really like those silver brakes. It looks really good. But yeah, there you go, guys. I had to take this whole RC apart. I usually do that when I first get an RC. I didn't really do it until now, but a stainless steel screw kit is like the best time to do it. So I definitely know the ins and outs of this thing. Now, before I end this upgrade, there's something I should probably go ahead and talk about, and that would be the body. Now, I just drove this thing around a little bit, and check this out. The front got totally destroyed. We're gonna have to fix that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some drywall tape on here and then some hot glue. So there is the result, and it looks horrible. Out of all the RC bodies I have used this method on, I have never encountered this problem before. The plastic that they use on the LaTrax Rally body is so thin and brittle that the glue just melted it. Now, I don't let the hot glue gun just sit there and get really hot. As soon as I can pump glue through it, I use it. And that never has caused any issues in the past, but wow, this body is just, ugh. Now, after looking at it further, it's cracked in other places, so the stock body is just terrible. Now, from looking around, I have realized that there are no other aftermarket bodies for the LaTrax Rally. As far as I know, the stock body is the best option because it's the only option. So I think in the future I am going to get another body. I'm going to install LED lights, make it look really good, and I'm just going to keep this body as my basher body because yeah, I'm not going to invest any more into this thing. One last thing I should go ahead and mention about the RC Screwz kit is yes, they always do include some extra screws, at least for the most common ones. There is not duplicates for all the sizes that are included in the kit. For example, there is no duplicates for the ones for the body posts and the long screws that go in through the top of the chassis. But still, it's nice that they do include some duplicates. And wow, yeah, there's all the stock ones. I'll hold on to them just in case. I don't think I'm ever going to use them again, but why not? So anyways, I have to admit that I am very happy with this upgrade. The stainless steel Screwz is exactly what I needed for this RC. It has never looked this good before. And that was Onyx's level 3 upgrade.